Welcome, everybody. Just like to take a second to say thank you for checking this live stream out today in the middle of the day on a Tuesday, or maybe if you are on the other side of the pond from us, it's 7 p.m. And where's Daniel at again? Sweden, I think. Pretty cool to think about it. Yeah, 7 p.m. in Sweden. So thank you guys for checking this out, whether it's real live time right now or you catch a replay in the future. We value all of those views. This is the Dr. Nick's Amazing Man Stuff YouTube channel, and this show specifically is the Doctor's Orders. We are on episode 54 right now, over a year in a row of not missing an episode and really growing this channel, and it's creeping and crawling into the mid 700s, getting closer to that 1,000 mark goal. You guys will have some kind of fun celebration at 1,000, and as we kick into the fall and winter and all these beard seasons, it's going to be pretty awesome. Today, we have a topic. But then, hey, this is all about transparency. This is all about long form and sharing the company, sharing the people behind it. There's a new, there's a new story that's going to be inserting itself. Hey, Paul, good to see you, man. A new story inserting itself that is just going to have to get talked about today. As Mark says right here, he said, I can't wait to hear Nick's experience at the S Storm. You guys can fill that in yourself of a music festival. So, Nick, with that said, and guys, I highly encourage you, if you're new here, go check out all those old videos, see what's going on. And one thing you'll find out, Nick is very transparent, very, very honest. Nick, how you doing?
Oh, like hell.
And this is true.
I'm just, again, I told you before we started, I'm just going to be brutally honest here. And it's like, I didn't even fill Dan in on everything yet because it's been such a whirlwind.
I didn't want to hear it. I said, I want it on the stream.
Oh yeah. He's like, save it, zip it, and so we're just going to unpack it all right here. So, overall, good, like, right. It's life is good. Family is good. Business is good.
Good.
Here I am in a dry house that's temperature controlled. So, as far as those things are concerned, I'm doing great.
Very fair. And you are with friends in a safe place here to be able to vent and share. And we want to learn from your experience too.
That it is, man. But yeah, holy hell. I'm older than last time you guys saw me. I turned 40 on Friday. Thanks for all the birthday wishes that came in. I really appreciate that. And in the chat here, son of Dr. Nick, it's his birthday today. He turns 11. So
happy birthday, Jack.
Heck yeah. Happy birthday to my dude. Getting huge, getting old. And and we're back home, right? And right. So I will share with you guys definitely all the stories, but holy heck, between leaving Thursday and getting back in it around midnight last night, getting to sleep around 2:30 and up this morning at 6, I'm a little fuzzy, little delirious, probably a little less of a filter than I usually have. So that's good or bad. I don't know. It'll at least be amusing.
Yeah, I know for sure it's going to be amusing. And so we will probably at some point, guys, talk about ethical sourcing, but this is just something that's just so wildly interesting. And if you guys have any good news or good feedback like Banana Goat has here, maybe save it in your pocket and drop it at the end of the stream. We would probably love to hear that. Like Banana Goat said, just want to say thanks to Neil and Jill and Nick for getting my order packed up today. I'm so excited. It feels like Christmas and you didn't even get Yule tree. That's awesome. That's awesome. And special shout out to Wilson, right?
Dude, as usual, Wilson is there at the shop with Jill right now packing orders. On top of everything else we had to go on this weekend, Wilson was driving Jill's Jeep around while we were out of town and called us yesterday. And the thermostat that had been giving her an issue finally decided to rear its ugly head and stop functioning on Wilson on his way to the office. So on top of watching our house, watching our dog, watching the office, helping out at Bigfoot and helping out at Dr. Nick's, then he was mobile mechanic waiting for a tow truck using his AAA to tow Jill's Jeep back to our house to meet us there later that night. So it was like icing on the cake, but Wilson handled it all in stride as usual. And we wouldn't be where we are without him as per usual.
Yes. So shout out to Wilson. Unbelievable.
Holding it down.
Now, we're going to jump right into this here. And guys, if you could hit that thumbs up, share this stream out. You're at least going to learn some entertaining stories. So to begin, it was your birthday on Friday, correct?
Yep.
And you wanted this really kind of cool special weekend, and I'd been talking to you about this for weeks, and you're like, yeah, we want to go to this Blue Ridge Rock Festival, and we want to bring Jack with us. We want to just go have a great time. It's got this band and this band, and we got this sick Airbnb that's on a lake, and we're gonna fly in. And I'm like, are you guys driving? No, we're gonna fly in. We're doing this right. It's the birthday weekend, right? You only turn 40 once. And I'm like, heck yeah. Absolutely. This all just sounds amazing. And then I started to hear little whispers of like articles and different things like this, and seeing pictures of trash and flooding and huge lines, and like not really knowing what's going on. And then it was actually in the chat right now. Somebody messaged me and was like, hey, have you heard from Nick about what's going on? And I'm like, no, because I don't watch the news. I don't follow news outlets. I just don't do that. And I'm like, no. And he's like, you might want to check with Nick a little bit. And it's like, oh, wow. Okay. So Blue Ridge Rock Festival. Nick, I say let's hit it from the very beginning, getting there and how'd everything progress from the good to the bad to the worst to the worst. What is this national, probably international story? What was it like being there?
So, okay, let's hit it. So, I mean,
Oh my
things,
gosh.
started off pretty great, right? I mean, it was the typical travel, kind of struggles, just getting down there as a group and all that kind of stuff. But once we were there, right, they actually had a rental car ready for us, which my rental car luck is not great. About like, probably 4 out of 10 times they have my reservation ready. Otherwise, I don't know what it is. But everything was kind of working, right? Everything worked out great. We got our codes for the Airbnb on time, so we got our car, drove up north from Raleigh, up to Samora, North Carolina, which is right south of the Virginia border, right about 10 minutes away from where we were doing the event at the Virginia International Raceway. And we checked into the house. It was gorgeous, right? The house was amazing. I mean, it's this gorgeous 5-bedroom house, separate detached, game room and separate apartment outside, right on the lake, big dock out back, paddle boards, kayaks, barbecue. Awesome. The inside was great. Our friends made it into town, without issue, and got there in the wee hours of the morning, Friday morning, after we were already asleep Thursday night. But yeah, and so we went out to dinner, I guess, Thursday night, and it's when we started first getting the inkling that something was a little off. So, we find a place that's open for food, and it's this little, local kind of hole in the wall kind of spot, family kind of oriented place. It's one of those, whatever they're making that day is what you're eating. It was actually kind of a cool place. There was people like helping us get a table and we're taking drink orders. Then we asked a question and she's like, oh, I don't actually work here. She's like, the waitress, there's only one of them. And she's so busy from everyone in town. She's like, we're just regulars. We help people, get tables and drinks and stuff.
That's awesome.
And I was like, oh, okay. So everyone was friendly, but we started seeing all these people start walking by, Thursday night. Meanwhile, the event is supposed to go on until midnight. We're eating dinner at around 8 and we're seeing all these people from the festival. And what's weird about that is there's no re-entry at the festival. So it's not like you can leave and go back in. So we're like, it's a little weird.
Yeah.
And so we start kind of asking around and talking. And it turns out that although it was only sprinkling where we were 5 minutes away, I guess they got like 60-mile-an-hour winds, hail, and dumping rain at the festival. And they had to shut it down for the night. They had to end it early and send everyone out. And what they were
Thursday.
What's that?
Thursday.
This was Thursday.
Okay.
And so I'm looking at the total number of attendants, but basically we had, I thought for some reason it was like 15,000 something people or something like that. I got to look again. My numbers could be way off. But basically what ended up happening was they didn't really think of their evacuation strategy when it came to everyone actually needing to leave at once, as an evacuation would dictate.
Right.
So I guess previous years they had a big problem with traffic getting into and out of the event because there's so many people. People were sitting in their cars for hours. And so what they did this year is they put, you got the raceway here. There's a big campground here and a big campground over here. And they had people park there and get shuttled in on buses. Now it's about 5 miles away for one parking lot that you parked in, 9 miles away at the other one. And so the parking was free and you had to pay for shuttle passes every day. So for the three of us, it was $30 a day and you pay that per day. So it was like $115 for 3 days worth of shuttles, right? To be able to take these to and from the event. And the shuttles ended up being school buses and this, which is no problem, but the school buses ended up not running frequently enough. So like when we pulled up, well, start Friday in a minute. It turns out when they evacuated everyone Thursday, they made everyone leave the venue at once. And then they were basically evacuating 15,000 some odd people, 35 people at a time on buses that weren't like stacked up, just running through. There was pauses between all of them. And so some of the people that got evacuated ended up standing out in the rain in no shelter with hail, lightning, 60-mile-an-hour winds. The person that I spoke to directly that had a firsthand account of it waited 4.5 hours to get picked up by a shuttle bus to get back to the parking lot.
Wow.
And that same day, I guess when people were checking into the campground, they didn't have that really figured out either. And people that had been driving with trailers, they sat between 3 and 8 hours to get into the campground just to set up their spot. So 8-hour lines, 4-hour lines, just craziness with lines and understaffing. And then so we were kind of like, okay, well, we had our timing figured out for Friday. So we got there early afternoon. When we pulled up to the place where we're parking, we see this huge group of people. And I'm like, what the heck is that group of people? And as we keep driving, the group of people turned out to be a line. And it was going from the bus, wrapping around a building, down a hill, around some trees, into a parking lot, and up another hill.
All people
Waiting to get to the show for the shuttle. So that was about an hour-long line just to get there, to get picked up by the bus. And then when you got there, it was like really apparent that like things just weren't quite right. Like there's just piles of trash everywhere. Apparently they didn't hire a green team, like a sanitation team. So there was no one assigned to emptying trash cans or porta potties or anything like that, to the point where like we were leaving the VIP tent area and we had some paper plates and stuff from eating lunch. And I was asking the guy at the door, I was like, hey man, where's there a trash can here? I've been looking, I can't find one. He's like, your guess is as good as mine, man. And he's like, you can add it to the pile behind me. And I was like, well, I kind of feel like a jerk contributing to the pile. Is that, is there another way I could, somewhere else I could go? I kind of feel like I'm contributing to a problem there. And he's like, that sounds like a them problem, not a you or a me problem. He's like, if they didn't want piles of trash, they should have hired people to take out trash.
Oh,
and I was like, oh no, employees are already upset and bitter. And so, there was literally trash mountains around this place, like crazy trash. And so, porta potties are all overflowing by the end of the day and, all that good stuff. So there's that, right? We'll talk about more of the issues on Friday, but overall, right, we actually did luck out because Friday was the only day where there was a full day of shows. So we got to see, Knocked Loose and Sleep Token, and God, we got to see Acacia Strain, and Jack got to see Slipknot. Sleep Token was freaking amazing. I mean, there was a lot of good shows. So I mean, we did luck out there, But what ended up happening, I guess, is then Saturday rolls around and we're sitting there on Saturday getting ready to go in, and we hear that there's a delay for weather. And we look outside and we're at a lake house 10 minutes away and it's sunny and nice, right? It's like in the morning it had some drizzle and that was it. And then about, 2 hours later or so, we get the announcement that the whole festival had been canceled. They canceled the rest of that day, Saturday, and they canceled all day Sunday. So all the bands that we actually drove down there or, flew down there to see and spent all this money to go look at, they were all playing Saturday, Sunday. So it was like basically the whole reason, we wanted to go was out of the picture at that point. And so everyone's rebooking flights, JetBlue's getting inundated. Everyone's getting inundated. Half of these people are camping and their campsites got destroyed on Thursday. So like they had nowhere to stay and no flights to get back because they couldn't get on an earlier flight. A lot of people, they were in hotels, so they were just stuck inside at, whatever hotel they were at, basically Saturday, Sunday, which was crazy. And so, we ended up kind of making the best of it, right? We had a lake house, we had kayaks, we had paddle boards, and we had beers. So we kind of made a day out of Raleigh, out of Durham. One day we went down to Durham and hung out and checked things out down there. Then we took off and went to Raleigh the next day and checked some things out. So we made the best of it. But while we're doing it, there's a Facebook group called Screwed by Blue Ridge Rock Fest.
Oh,
And it was people that just started sharing their stories, man. And I mean, between people getting turned away from overbooked tickets or whatever else it might be, it started getting crazy. And then the real news dropped. It was someone was talking to security, and then they started hearing from bands, and they started hearing from people who worked there. And it turned out that it wasn't weather that got them canceled. It was staffing shortages, because basically 75% of the stage hands and property hands that were there, they all quit Friday night and Saturday morning. So 75% of the staff just literally walked out, and they weren't legally allowed to hold the event on Saturday or Sunday because they didn't meet their license obligations for staff or security or facilities. And there's a law in Virginia and in most states, whereas if you purchase an event ticket and the event gets canceled because of, an act of nature, right? Then they have to refund ticket prices to you. So if they lean on weather, right? Hurricane comes through, nothing you could really do about that. It gets canceled, and, you get your ticket money back.
Yeah.
But if you, as an event organizer, fail to staff the event properly, don't meet licensing requirements, you do something else that was avoidable, and that causes the event to get canceled, you're then on the hook for people's travel expenses, lodging, along with ticket prices.
Oh.
So Virginia gives you a platform to be able to recoup those expenses from people who do that to you. And so does the state of Massachusetts. So like we live in a state that supports that idea, and we are going to an event in a state that has a law like that. So I'm definitely putting together a pretty good case to get everything back. But it was, literally, 72 hours before the event, the state was planning on not letting anybody attend anyway because of documents that weren't submitted and deposits that weren't paid and licensing fees. There was a bond issue. There weren't sufficient, like the fire marshal had concerns over the event. Like, it was a big, almost not happening anyway. But it's just been crazy. Yeah, exactly. People are saying it's like Fire Festival round 2. We were literally looking for Ja Rule. We were like, all right, where is he? Did he change his name to, John Sly, the guy who runs this thing? Like, exactly right. Because that's exactly what we thought when this stuff all started going down. And someone posted a meme from like It's Always Sunny, and it's like the gang throws a festival. And it literally deserved to be the title of like a It's Always Sunny episode. Like, I can just see Frank like being like, "Oh, we don't need to hire shuttle buses. I got a buddy with school buses. We'll just borrow them." Like I can hear the whole thing unfolding right now. And you got Charlie, and you got Mac in charge of security practicing karate at the door instead of checking for guns. Like, I can see the whole thing.
Now, is this the first year of this?
No,
I didn't
and
think
that's
so.
the worst part. So for someone, and this is what like really gets me. As someone who researches everything to death, like, you guys know this about me, like I am a information addict and I just research and read everything to death. Apparently this had happened in previous years. And this Facebook group called Screwed by Blue Ridge actually got started 3 years ago. And what's scary now is he's doing the same thing as he did last year. They're already pre-selling tickets for next year. They just opened up pre-sale after all this for 2024. And this guy on the forum, on the Facebook group's like, I don't know what to do. He's like, we started this group when people got this screwed a few years ago. The same things happened. The people said the same things, same issues, yet the event sold out again, despite this group existing, despite everyone on Reddit. Like, no one finds it until they have a problem.
Yeah.
And so I missed it. All the signs were there. Like, it was literally all signs pointed towards don't spend your money, and especially don't bank like a birthday vacation on this event going smoothly.
Right. Now,
and it was Jack's birthday weekend too, right? I mean, it's the weekend before Jack's birthday. He's turning 11. It's his first festival. And then all of a sudden we find out like Saturday, not going, Sunday, not going. Like, it all just started like unraveling as we were there.
Hey, at least you set the bar low for him, so everything's going to be better now, and it's going to be like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, exactly. He's gonna, like someone else said, he's gonna go to like the Juggalo gathering someday and be like, "This thing's so well organized and everyone's so friendly."
Right. Now, did you get in on the pre-sale for 2024? You guys got your Airbnb and your tickets and everything ready for next year?
Well, I mean, of course. I mean, it's one of those things where, try again.
And
No.
but how is this, right? You're clearly not going. You have terrible memories. You're not going to trust this event again. As you shouldn't. I would be like, Nick, what are you doing? Firefest has also went on pre-sale and has sold out. It's put on by the same guy. Like Firefest has become the pinnacle of a joke for this stuff. Like it's what you compare everything. How does it sell out?
I don't know. I don't know. Like it's like I don't know. Like I don't know if people are literally doing it as a joke. Like if it happens, it must be really cool. But if it doesn't, oh well, I'm on an island. Like I don't know. I have no clue how that one's expected to go.
Wow. So it gets canceled, and this is Friday when it gets canceled. It's on your birthday. You hear ahead of
Saturday,
time.
yeah. So we hear all this on Saturday. So we get through Friday and wake up
Okay.
Saturday and start hearing all this basically.
Okay. So what do you guys do to make past the rest of the time now that you're down there and this time is just gone?
Yeah, so I mean, we thankfully had a really sweet place to stay. It was really really nice. Like Jack was paddleboarding and swimming like all day both days. We had a ton of time in the water, which was great, just floating around, relaxing. We ended up, like I say, going down to Durham, and we found a couple of cool restaurants, a couple of cool bars. Raleigh had a really cool place that was full of like old arcade machines and pinball machines and stuff. We took there and went there with Jack and hung out and played games and
do whatever you can. Yeah.
Yeah. We went and found good pizza, and it was, I mean, that's basically it. We just kind of mashed around town, and it was an hour drive there and an hour drive back from where we were. So I mean, that burned some time just kind of exploring and checking things out, and
yeah,
just kind of enjoying not being, without the responsibilities of home, at least just kind of enjoying our surroundings at least a little bit.
Right. Now, did you touch on the travel home yet?
Oh, no. So
go ahead.
We're like, so we get in the car and we going home. We're like, wow, this has been a lot. Like we're all dead and just feeling like defeated. It's like we have that kind of feeling of just being like, bleh, just deflated. And so Wilson calls on the way to the airport and says, hey, the Jeep the thermostat died. It's spike temp. I got to pull over and get it towed back to the house. We're like, okay, cool. What up? What's new? What's next?
Right. Why not?
And then so that goes on. We get to the airport, and as we're going through security, I was like, oh, sweet. We got a 15-minute delay. That means we can stop and grab a quick bite and a beer. Let's do that, because we were cutting it close like we do. And we get through security and we get close and going to grab something to drink. And all of a sudden that delay turns into an hour. And then we're like, okay, still no big deal. And then all of a sudden I go up and I ask the guy at the gate, the plane's there, flight crew's there. Apparently our pilots were delayed coming in from Charlotte. So we had no pilots. And I was like, so what's the ETA on them? Have they left yet? He's like, oh no, they haven't left yet. He's like, there's no. And then I'm sitting there looking around, and there's this guy standing next to me. And I was like, you in the same boat? You waiting for this flight? He's like, no, I'm waiting on this flight from yesterday.
Oh.
And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, oh, well, they did the same thing yesterday. They pushed it back an hour, then 2 hours, then 4 hours, then 5 hours, then canceled it. They put me on the flight today. And so he's now waiting, rebooked.
For your flight?
For this flight. Yep.
Yeah.
And then so I then see the notification where all of a sudden the flight changes from 2 p.m. departure to 5:30. And I was like, oh boy, that must mean we found pilots.
Right.
And that must be their ETA. So I go ask the guy again, and he's like, oh no, those pilots we were waiting for, they timed out on the runway. They're not allowed to fly once they get here now.
That makes sense.
He's like, so we got to find new pilots. That's just a default time we throw up there. And I was like, okay. So
it's a default. Not that you're like planning the rest of your day and you know around it. Yeah.
No, so and then I'm like, okay, everyone's rebooking. There's another flight at like 8:45. So I'm like, okay, can you move me to the 8:45 flight just in case this one doesn't go, we'll just wait for that one. And as I'm talking to him, that one gets delayed an hour to 9:45.
And this
And
is
so I'm like, he's like,
last
well, I
night?
can't book you on that one because it's now delayed. We can't put you on standby there while you're booked here. He's like, so I mean, you might just be leaving tomorrow. I don't know, but the first flight out's at 2 p.m. And I'm like, that just won't work, right? We got Jack's birthday today. We got live stream here today. I needed to be back for this. And then so I'm like, screw it. I'm just gonna go. I know JetBlue's rules where if you book a flight, you can cancel it within 24 hours of booking it with no penalty.
Okay.
It's a new rule that came up in COVID, I think. And so I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to go out of pocket, pay the $1,000 to book the 8:45 flight for all three of us. And that way, if this one gets delayed past that, I'll have them cancel me off this and refund me and give me credits for the difference. If this one takes off, I'll cancel the other one from the runway.
Smart.
So that's what, I did that. So now I had two horses in the race. Now they both have leg splints, right? Because one's now delayed 4 hours. One's already delayed 2 hours. So I got two kind of messed up horses in the same race. So I'm kind of betting on them. And finally, they're like, okay. They're like, it's going to depart at 8 o'clock. And I'm standing there. And literally, as I'm standing there, the flight crew comes off the plane and they're like, well, we're about to time out. So if we don't get this figured out soon, we're going to have to go. And the guy at the counter is like, you guys can take off. I'll pay you if this flight goes. He's like, I doubt it's going to go, though. Does one of those. And I'm like, oh,
to the
good.
pilots?
The guys at the ticket counter, the ticket agents. Still no pilots.
Oh.
And then this is like the flight crew, the flight attendants.
Oh, okay.
So they're leaving. And then literally I'm standing there and you can't make this up. I'm on the phone with Jill going, okay, well, we just lost our flight crew. So that's telling. And then what happens? Two pilots walk up and they're like, hey, we heard about what was going on. We just volunteered to take over this flight. Can you guys book us onto this flight?
Wow.
And everyone starts cheering. But literally that was 30 seconds after the flight attendants all just left. So now we have pilots and we have no flight attendants.
Oh my God. Did you start running? Man,
I was like, I'll go get them. I was
Yeah.
like, actually, what I said was, shit, I know how to serve beer. I even know all the announcements. You want me to get up there and do it? Like, they'll love it.
Right.
I'm like, put me in the game, coach. I can sling some crackers. Like, I got this.
Why, right?
And so finally they get the flight attendants back. They get the pilots back. Then one pilot's missing. The other one's there. They're herding cats and paging the other pilot in the terminal. He's in the bathroom. I don't know. And like, it was just this chaos. So finally we end up leaving at like, I don't know, 9 something. And they're like, well, we got to take the long route because of the weather in Boston. So instead of being an hour and a half flight, it's going to be a little over 2 hours. So we're just kind of taking it as it comes. And finally, we're just like, okay, we're on a plane. We canceled the other flight. We'll get there eventually. And we did. We got in at like 11:30 something at night, and got home a little after midnight kind of time, about 12:30 or so. But it was like, dude, it was like the escape. It was like the escape from Blue Ridge was like just as bad as like the Blue Ridge experience in general.
Why does it always work that way? Like, why is it like, I'm not kidding. Like for us, we'll have times where we'll get like hangry and we're like, all right, we got to go eat. And then we find a place and we're already irritated, agitated. We find it, drive there, and then it's closed. We went just recently, we had somewhere and they just had a sign on their door, closed for a power outage. And it was like, oh, and then we mapped another place and it was all in there, had the reviews and everything, literally wasn't there. Like maps had just been so outdated, it just didn't work. And it was like, this never happens like for the last 6 months of my life, but you're going to add all these times into one situation at the worst times possible. It happens like together. Like, why is that?
Dude, I don't know. It's like, it's the law of attraction, I feel like, because just like that, we had that happen when we went to Raleigh. We're like, all right, we'll make the best of it. So we drove all the way to this place that has these arcade machines, right? So Jack can have something to do while we're having some drinks. We get there and we walk into the place and Jack sees all the pinball machines. We're all stoked. We get ready to do it. And there's an announcement that comes on the door. Announcement, everybody. We have 15 minutes left until 7 p.m., which is when we turn 21 and up for the evening. All right, everybody, 21 and up after 7. Wow. So I look at Jack and I'm like, sorry, dude. And then we find another place and they're like, oh, yeah, we do have tables, but we're actually attached to a distillery. And because of that, we're 21 and up. We can't have any kids at tables. And I was like, Okay. So then we went somewhere else and I found somewhere else on there. And I was like, all right, this place looks like they have some good beer that I can drink from this place down the road. We go there, we get a table, we sit down. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I need one. I'm going to have one of these German Pilsners. That sounds great. And she's like, oh, our tap system's down right now. We actually don't have any beers right now. And I'm like, okay.
You're just trying to hold it in and not take it out on her. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and then it gets even better. So then I almost get the impression that like I'm on the Truman Show, right? And there's someone like on a walkie-talkie,
Yeah.
like, okay, yeah, he's walking in. No. Kill the taps. Kill the taps. Yep. Nope. No beer. Tell him no beer. And then so we find another place and we get up there, we walk onto their porch, and I look at the menu and I was like, ooh, that cilantro something pear margarita sounds pretty good. I'll get that. And I swear to God, the guy on the walkie-talkie is like, tell him we're out of the simple serve. We can't make those. And then I get up there and I was like, I'll have one of those. And she's like, oh, that's the one thing we're out of right now. Actually, we don't have the syrups. I'm sorry. I'm like, oh, I'll do a backup. I'll go for that Mexican mule. She's like, our ginger beer just ran out. We don't have that either.
But you also forgot about the place that was closed for a private event that they didn't list online.
That was that place. So we get inside and we're like, can we sit inside? Oh, it's a private event right now. You can sit outside. And it's like raining, muggy. We're like, okay.
Oh,
but dude, it was literally like, that was Saturday. That was our make the best of it day. Like, okay, let's just go find things to do. Brush it off.
Yeah.
Get back on the horse and go find fun. No.
Dude.
It was like, what the hell?
That's hard to hold it together too. It's hard to not just say like, screw it. And just be like, that's tough. I know not to that level, but I know what that's like, where you just feel like everything is just going against you. Just a slap. And this is after all the other stuff has happened at the festival for you.
Right. And that's the real clincher, is that it was just like any of these things individually are stuff that we experience all the time, but all of them at once and then over and over again, it's like you can start wondering, like, what the hell did I do?
Yeah,
why did I turn 40?
Right. Right. Yeah. Like the cheesy, corny things like, do you feel different after waking up at 40? You can safely say, yes, you did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I feel far more frustrated and irritated and like I get screwed a lot.
My sample size is small, but it's potent.
Perfect way to put it.
Yeah. Did the term simulation cross your mind through all this?
1,000% it did. Like, it was like the first thing that crossed my mind is like, okay, like what sick, twisted simulation am I a part of right now?
Right. Now, one thing that I did see that was pretty cool for two reasons is, I don't know if you saw this, but Oliver Anthony joined Shinedown for Simple Man Campground Jam. So they did this like in a parking lot, I guess.
Yeah, they did it in the campground.
Yeah. Now that's super cool. Now, do you know who Oliver Anthony is?
So I didn't know who he was until we saw him standing around with his dogs with a bunch of people at a festival in the VIP tent. And he was just hanging out wearing work boots and his freaking, blue t-shirt and just sitting there with his dogs, and people were hanging out talking to him. So we were wondering who he was. And then we saw this stuff and everything else going on. We're like, oh, that's who that was. Got it.
Yeah, so he has the most viral song in the history of the internet. Like he went from literally performing at like county fairs in front of 9 people to having the top Billboard hit in the country within a week. Number 1.
Yeah, number 1 and completely unrepresented, no record label, completely self-made.
Yeah, and I'm going to check now. At last I saw, I believe it was at 40 million views for his one video. It's at 63 million views right now.
Wow.
63 million. And dude, that's in a month.
That is insane, isn't it?
That's in a month.
Wow.
Dude goes from absolutely no recognition, even locally, to having the number 1 song, going on Joe Rogan, being at these festivals, making it. He has 3 other songs that are in the top 5. Like, come on. Like, are you kidding me?
That's just crazy, isn't it?
The internet works sometimes. It actually works.
Sometimes it works. When it works, man, it works.
Yep. And this dude, from my experience of seeing him, deserves it. He just has a pure, beautiful voice, real country style to him, and just seems like he's not letting it get to his head in a bad way. And who knows? I don't know the guy. I don't see the guy.
He sure didn't seem like it, man. Like he was, like, as far as letting it go to his head in the wrong ways. I mean, this guy there was a lot of big names there, you know, and everyone was pretty quick, like either walk into a meet and greet or, you know, to or from. And if someone grabbed them, they'd sign something real quick and keep walking.
Yeah.
But this dude was standing there. I'd say he was standing around with this group of people, taking photos, shaking hands, talking with people for a good 45 minutes where I saw him stopped. And it wasn't like a meet and greet. He was just walking to go get some food and people
By
stopped
himself.
him. And he was just there with his dogs and people were petting his dogs and getting, it wasn't any semblance of like, okay, yep, no, one more and then we got to go. Like it was everyone had all their phones out. He was taking their phones, taking selfies with them. Like he was signing stuff. I mean, literally seemed like didn't have anything else to do in the world besides stand there and talk to his fans.
Yeah, and I did see this too. He just canceled a show because he found out the promoter was charging more for tickets than they had agreed to. So essentially, him and the promoter had a show and they said, "Hey, let's charge $20 for tickets here." And his fame has just exploded even more, right? The song came out and hit. Then he did Joe Rogan and it really hit. And after that point, the promoter was like, "I can get more for this. I'm charging more for my tickets." Anthony Aller said, "Cool. Show's over. We didn't agree to that. I'm not charging people more because I went on Joe Rogan."
Dude, that's huge because the inflated ticket price thing is nuts right now.
Crazy.
And it's just people stuffing their pockets. Like the fear of greed, man. We should all have it because it's a powerful force out there.
And there's so many stories right now about that with promoters charging more than what they agreed to, charging more than was supposed to happen. Yeah, it's going nuts. And so many of the artists are refusing to raise the prices. And then it's the black market that's taken over. It's the promoters that are taking over. They're winning all those things.
Dude, that's it. And you know, there was someone that I was hearing through the grapevine through one of my music friends. He experienced a promoter that last minute held tickets. And then what he did was he released like 500 extra tickets or something at double the price that they had agreed to on their bill. He didn't notify the band. He pocketed the percent. He pocketed every bit that was extra plus his same percentage from the original amount. And they had to sue him to get the damages back and everything else. Like these guys out there are just making money any way they can. You work with the wrong venue, the wrong promoters, man, they can make a bad name for you.
It's gross. It's so gross. I just read a story about Baker Mayfield. He's a pro football player. Essentially, I believe it was $15 million he invested into his own family's business, his dad's business. And then the money just disappears, just gone. Like it's out of here. And then the family's like making up all these lies, all these excuses. He's pretty much writing off his family. Then another story, same thing. I just today, these are not old stories. Baker Mayfield was this weekend. Today, Paul Pogba, he's a world-class soccer player, football player. He is saying, and he's a younger guy, and he's saying, I might be retiring from soccer, from football, because there is an extortion ring that's against me right now to take all my money, and it's being led by my brother.
Whoa.
Come again? Oh, Baker Mayfield got screwed by his dad and his family. This guy's by his brother, and like so crazy. Like so dang crazy, man. Like get yourself good people and hold on to them with all your might, everybody, with all your might. It's nuts. And this stuff is showing it, and these music festivals are perfect examples of it.
They are. It's just, there's a lot of greed out there right now. You know, it seems like now that the world has kind of come back from being shut down. I noticed that it has come back. It's like Pet Cemetery, you know, where it's like, he says like, sometimes dead is better. Yep. And he's like, yeah, what comes out of that ground isn't going to be your boy. He's going to come back different. Yeah. You know, and it's holy crap. The world literally came back different. Like
it is. I had like a revelation yesterday about that. Someone messaged me like, hey, have you seen this content creator? Have you talked to this content creator? What about this content creator? What about them? And they just rattled off a list, and they're like, we haven't heard from them. They all just poof, disappeared. And then we were talking, and the person said, I forget who it was, so that's my fault. But the person said, yeah. I think it was my buddy Nick. He said, yeah, a lot of people had extra time and money during lockdown, and they were able to do things like create content. Well, now that it's all kind of back again, they don't have the money, they don't have the time, and things have to get cut out of your life. And if something has to go, a lot of people are choosing these different things. And I'm like, wow. And then we see stuff like this, and I thought the same thing. I'm like, oh yeah, we kind of were living in this different universe for a couple of years, and now that we're back, it's like you forgot the parameters, you forgot how to function, and we're seeing more. I mean, Burning Man, this one, there was one in New York that that Mark was talking about. Like, they're all super similar, like super similar,
very,
just
very
crazy.
similar. You know, and they all have one thing in common, and that's weather, right? Which is really interesting, just to kind of illustrate the difference in weather patterns.
Yeah,
You know, you look at Burning Man. You know, they even said the years, like the city council for Black Rock Development and, you know, the Black Rock Foundation that maintains that area of the playa. They said that in that area of the desert, a 1/4 inch of rain can render it completely inaccessible by any vehicle, even emergency vehicles, if there was a problem.
wow,
That was in the bylaws of their original agreement, saying, just sure, we'll approve it, but just know that even a 1/4 inch of rain is going to make it completely inhabitable and completely inaccessible.
wow,
And so they got like considerably more than that, right? And you think about how long Burning Man's been going on for, you know, 20 plus years. I mean, it's never had that. Like, they've never had that kind of weather in 20 plus years, the time of year they throw it. These festivals that they're throwing now that are normally outdoor ones, and they're throwing them now, they're getting impacted by hurricanes and tornadoes and unpredictable weather. It's like a pretty good little farmer's almanac of, you know,
right?
what worked 10 years ago doesn't work now.
Something's different, that's for sure. And
Damn
guys,
right.
it is Jack's birthday today, and he is saying we got 35 people in here right now, and we're not even at 30 likes. He's just like, hey, some of you forgot, but it's my birthday. Could we get some of those like buttons hit? That would be amazing. So
Oh, look at that.
appreciate it, guys. And with this one, I did wonder this. Once I realized that Oliver Anthony was there, I would love for your products to get into his beard, not because of sales, not be trying to clout chase and stuff. I feel like he would really, you specifically in your company would really resonate with him if you were able just to speak to him. And I think that would be such a cool connection.
It would be. And, you know, I wish I knew who he was while we saw people talking to him, because I would have gone over and at least introduced myself and talked about beards and got his info, so I could have sent him something or sent him something out. Literally didn't know who he was until I saw the news about that concert breaking, then thought back to where I saw him, and I was like, oh, okay, that starts to make sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, we weren't allowed to bring products in. They had this big thing about that if you were there and gave away anything that was a commercial product that wasn't related to the venue, that you could be asked to leave and not allowed back in, you know? So we were like trying to abide by the rules, but we did get lots of photos of people with beards and tagged their Instagrams. I was the first day, Friday, I was planning on doing it Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I was getting the hashtag of Beards of Blue Ridge together, and we were just kind of snapping selfies and getting people's Instagrams, and I was sending them over to Dan, and we're kind of getting things queued up, but obviously couldn't really do that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday because it wasn't there. But
that would have been so cool. You would have had there had to be a lot of beards.
Dude, lots of beards.
Yeah.
There was it was, you know, a lot of beards. And I mean, like, even down to the point, like down to like the guy at security, we stopped and talked to him about beards. Like, everyone we walked by was like, dude, nice beard. And like, we'd stop and we'd talk, and, you know, they'd have the same thing. Later, Jay Spears. And it was just one of those, one of those unfortunate things. But no, man, I'm probably gonna reach back out to him now and been like, hey, I was at Blue Ridge and I didn't get to talk to you, but would love to, you know, kind of a thing, and send him out some stuff. I think him and I would get along really well after reading about him since then.
Yeah, no, I agree fully. So, hey, if anything, you got a story out of this, you'll be a part of this thing that's going to go down in history that many people heard about, and you guys were actually there.
Yeah, that's it, man. Like, we lived it. We're gonna Jill's gonna be busting out her cricket, because we got, obviously, before everything went south, we had shirts and hats and stuff. So I bought one of their Blue Ridge hats, and she's gonna put like the transfer ink, like I survived Blue Ridge. And so we're just adding in the red I survived and bloody writing on top of the shirts, the hats, the everything. So we'll have our own custom Blue Ridge survival gear now.
Featured next week on Doctor's Orders.
You've seen it here first.
All right. So slight shift of gears for our last 15 minutes here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I know I learned a lot, and hopefully it was a little therapeutic to get it out there kind of in long form way. But today we had planned on talking about ethical sourcing. Kind of funny that it's an ethical topic today when there's a lot of things that were surrounding the promoters and all these music festivals and stuff that were not ethical.
Yeah.
And the way I kind of settled upon this and wanted Nick to talk about it is I was doing a lot of research on the USDA, on organic foods, on all these different things, and just how they're in the food industry, they can talk about ethical sourcing a lot. Now, of course, there's ways to bend it and get around the rules and exceptions, but people like to know, hey, was this ethically sourced? Is it something that's factory farming, or is it free range? Is it something that has hormones and antibiotics, or is it something that is truly grass-fed and driven like that? And then I thought to the beard world, and I said, there's not an exact translation. I mean, we can talk about emu oil and the different bird oils like ostrich oil. However, this is not a company that uses any animal products. And you're not really worried, at least I don't think most people are, about the plant, right? Cold pressing. I don't think too many people are like, oh my gosh, they pressed that plant. Did they press it gently? Like it's like it's a plant. But I do think in the beard industry, there is ethical sourcing. And I literally thought of Dr. Nix, like immediately thought of Dr. Nix with this, because there are different, hey, Jack, your grandmother says, happy birthday, Jack, and says, we gift our likes for you. There you go. It's beautiful. And I thought back to conversations I've had with Nick from the very, very beginning, and I'll let him elaborate more on it, but that stood out to me about sourcing. One of them that hit me real early on, we were discussing something, and he was like, oh, yeah. I sourced that from a company in Boston. We were short on something, and I was able to get the owner on the phone, and on a Sunday, I drove up to their facility, and I grabbed it myself and then brought it back home. And I'm like, whoa, because a lot of you probably don't realize, and this could be like a little industry education, most companies, and this is not a bad thing, I want to make sure I'm clear here, I'm not saying this in a negative light, most companies buy from a middleman. And this would be a company that takes all of the sourcing companies out there, get all those products in one place, in one warehouse, and you pick from them. All right, I want barrage oil, I want shea nut oil, I want this, I want that. And then they ship it out to you. What Nick takes pride in whenever possible is he wants to skip that middle person. He wants to jump to the person that's actually getting this oil, that's actually extracting the product, that's actually working with it themselves. It doesn't need to be shipped to a warehouse to sit and then shipped to them. That's more time. That's more heat exposure. That's just more issues. Mm-hmm. And even a step further, things like essential oils, Nick knows the lady for some of his essential oils extracting them. Nick knows other companies and the owner and speaks to them and knows the process, knows where they're located, like actually understands this. Does not do a Google search and say, hey, argan oil supplier, and then orders it. To me, and that's stuff that has never been shared publicly. He's not bragging about, boasting about. Those are conversations where I'm like, hey, what's going on with this? And then he's just in passing shared these things. I think that's as much of an ethical sourcing as possible in a cosmetic industry. And I really, really believe that. And as someone that loves this company and wears these products, have IPA and beard right now, I'm proud of that. I think that's pretty dang cool. And I don't know if it's ever been painted or thought of in that world and as ethical and thinking about skipping the middleman, going to the source. Nick, was that something that was conscious of day one? Was it something you kind of fell into or stumbled upon? What was kind of that route for you?
Yeah, it was, but not really intentionally. It was just kind of like the way that things came about. And I guess it was the way that, I guess because I did most of this in a vacuum in the beginning, like I didn't know how other people built product lines like this. In my mind, if you were going to do something small batch, handmade, craft, right, it should kind of feel that way, start to finish. So every supplier I found that I wanted to work with were people that I knew that I could have that kind of control, because I feel like it's that speaks to the craft side of what we do, right?
Yes.
you have to understand what your ingredients are, how they're produced, where they come from, in order to say that you have a small batch craft product. I feel like it kind of needs to be that way, start to finish. And working with a big no-name supplier where you call an 800 number and get an agent and they have a warehouse, that just didn't really fit that bill. And so, as I was selecting people going through it, I only worked with people that I could talk to the owner and go see their facility and know where things come from and know where they kind of stand from a sustainability and fair trade program and what they have for organic certifications and the RSPO stuff that they deal with for everything else, and that was kind of where, what was important to me. Just like when you buy a classic project car, you want to get a car that has like all the service records, right? So, like where things came from. And every single one of our oils, for example, in our carrier blend come with a data sheet that not only has each source origin, they're all single origin materials. So they all come from the same raw ingredient supplier. So they, and so from my mind, ethical sourcing, when you're talking about cosmetics, is making sure that end to end, right, that your stuff is sourced from raw materials in a good, sustainable way, and that the people that are selling it to you have a hand in that acquisition and production process of the raw materials. They are then creating a product in a bulk oil that we can use as part of our blend. But like you said, cutting out the middleman. And where that's challenging, I think, for people in our industry is especially at our size. And I'd venture to say at our size, until you get to the level of like a Live Bearded or a Beard Brand or any of those, and you're buying 50-gallon drums of carriers, right? I think the challenge for most people to kind of do it the way that we do it is it comes down to minimum order quantity. And when these places like you talked about, right? Like the place we use, they get all their stuff in 50-gallon drums and they'll pass them on like that. And typically, most suppliers who do that will not sell you gallons, right? They won't sell you individual gallons from a 50-gallon drum. That's just not their business. So that goes to the second tier of distributor, right? Where you have manufacturer distributor, and then you have mid-tier retail distributor, right? They don't take wholesale accounts. Sometimes they do.
Right.
But they drastically reduce that minimum order quantity, and they'll break that 50-gallon drum up all the way down into 16-ounce bottles up to a gallon, 2 gallons. Right.
But the price goes up.
And the price goes way up through the roof. And so what the challenge was for us is finding people that were manufacturer distributors, but that also would be willing to work in a contractual basis with someone who had a lower minimum order quantity, so long as we maintained exclusivity with them for those products. Right.
Yep.
They want to know that they have a captive audience, and we want to know we have a flexible supplier. And so it took some back and forth to be able to get these people to even work with us in the beginning,
Yeah.
But those same suppliers have stuck with us now. And like,
Right.
like a lot of the essential oils we buy are actually pressed and distilled and made by the people who we get them from.
That's so cool.
And it's not many people can say that. So, we know where the actual botanicals, like the raw actual plant matter that goes into some of these essential oils, we know where it comes from and how it's farmed. And that goes to someone who we know has employees, they pay well, they have health care, people are working in a family oriented environment, supplying things to another family owned business.
Yeah.
So to me, that's the ethical side of our sourcing, right? Is that I can 100% say to anybody with a straight face that I know exactly where all of our ingredients come from. I know exactly how they're all made. We have data sheets for the sources and origins of everything that we create. And we know that none of it is dangerous, toxic, made in an unsafe way, stored unsafely, or anything else that would make a less than quality product, right?
Yeah.
And to me, ethical sourcing mean that the ethics, right? It's kind of different, because ethical sourcing, when you're talking about raising cows, is making sure they can stand up and turn around and they can have grass to eat, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, with plants, it's kind of hard to say that unless you're scorching the earth and doing things that go against fair trade or whatever else, and you're devouring a culture to get what you're getting. We can't really contribute to those ethics, nor can we avoid them. So I think when we say ethical sourcing, it means that the ethics that are important to us as Dr. Nick's exist all the way through our supply chain. And we do our best to make sure that is adhered to.
And I hope everybody understands that at this level of company, growing company, and guys, this isn't a teeny tiny company, but it's also not some huge mega conglomerate with hundreds of employees and stuff. But at this size of a company, almost all of this is often impossible to do and keep fair prices, because the price goes up. Everything goes up on these. But me knowing Nick and me being on some of these calls, Nick, in a genuine, pure way, has a way with his words to be able to pitch the future of growing with this company, whether it's been labels or bottles or sourcing. Nick will get people to buy into what they're doing.
Yeah.
And for example, if you buy a 50-gallon drum of oil, the price per oil is at a certain level, a very low number. If you buy it by the 16-ounce bottle, it's much, much, much higher. And Nick will get on the call and say, hey, I can't do 50 gallons right now, but I want you to know what we're building, what we're doing, why I'm so passionate about this. And into the future, can you work with me on the price of the future and understand that I want you as my supplier 5, 10, 20 years from now? And oftentimes these companies, these owners, the actual owner is able to say, I like what you're doing. I like that. Yeah, that's fair. Let's do this. Let's grow together. And so Dr. Nix is able to do all these amazing things and hold the price points that they are because of these little advantages that most people never attempt or even think of. And it makes a big, big difference. Truly makes a big difference. And it's kind of like in line with Leo's comment here. He said, one of the better things about this industry is knowing the manufacturers and knowing their commitment because their name is on the door. Yeah, right. You, with Dr. Nix, you guys know Nick. You guys know Jill. This isn't some hidden thing. And Nick is saying, let me peel it back a step further and show you who we're working with, who we're using, and how that kind of style fits with everything. And I love that. And Justin has a really good question. He says, with all this said, if there's embargoes in place, if there's things that are going on in the world or even supply chain issues, does your sourcing of materials, does that ever limit you? Have you come across a situation where you're like, oh, shoot, we can't work with them because there's another country? Or do you try to stay within the US, or just has it not been an issue yet?
So almost all the stuff we use has an original raw materials origin of the United States, right? Or original the origin manufacturer, which is who takes raw materials and turns them into something usable. Those are almost all in the States. Now, a lot of the oils that we use clearly come from, plants that aren't grown here in the States, right? They're out of the country, Africa, right. other places.
Just not possible. Yep.
Right. Exactly right. And so for those, we haven't encountered it yet. Actually, we did encounter it once, and it's one of the things that actually made us switch from grapeseed oil. And when we stopped doing that, one of the main reasons was because they changed the supplier of grapeseed oil because of a supply chain issue, and they lost the relationship with the person who was manufacturing it a certain way.
Love that.
And even though we were working with the same supplier, the raw material just wasn't the same, wasn't up to our standards. We weren't getting what we liked out of it. And so as opposed to sticking with it or finding another grapeseed oil, we actually found that it was probably a really good time to pivot. Which is, when we started looking around and, actually exploring the portfolio and our existing supplier a little bit, and we pivoted our carrier blend. And that was because of supply chain issue, and we didn't want to work around it. So we decided just to go face on with it and solve it long term.
And with that said too, please understand, you guys, a name is not created equally. If you see let's say grapeseed oil, for example, there's a lot of bad grapeseed oils out there. There's also some really good ones. And so it's really tough, especially for someone in my position, where someone will say, hey, I don't like grapeseed oil. How do I respond and say, that's very well possible, but it also might be you didn't like the crappy grapeseed oil. You might not have liked the other one. And so, like that example, you guys had grapeseed oil that you loved and you were proud of. Well, it didn't work out with that supplier. A new one came in. You just didn't get those same results. So you didn't bend your morals. You didn't bend your expectations and say, shoot, we got to have it. Guess this is the best it is now. You pivoted and made something even better. You took a tough situation and you improved upon it, but it was your dedication to the sourcing. It was your dedication to quality that dictated that change.
Yeah, absolutely. It was. I mean, that was, and we talked about it on stream when that was going on too. We talked about that quite a bit and kind of walked through the whole process and what was going on, but that's, you can go back and rewatch it, right? It's exactly what we just said it was. It's just wasn't up to standards.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, it's huge.
Yeah, it really is. And that's kind of what I was going to say to kind of wrap this up, because again, crazy, believe it or not, it's been an hour already. But to wrap this up, understand that this company, everything that they do, and when I say everything, you guys, I mean everything. There's ethics put into it. There's their own personal morals and standards. And from every ingredient to the relationship of the owners, And I love being able to hear these conversations in passing. It's not even like it's a huge thing like, oh, we had this. It's just like, oh, yeah, I talked to the essential oil lady and blah, 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 this. It's so dang cool. And I hope it's something that comes through and that you guys are able to share when you talk to other people passionately about these products, because I know so many of you are. Just understand that attention to details, not just with everything you hear here, there's so much behind the scenes that so many little details go into it. And I'm proud to be able to help in any way I can and work with this company. And again, proud to wear their products and tell as many people about them as I can. So ethically sourced, 100%. Nick, I also want to say thank you for sharing today. Thanks for taking time out of your son's birthday. Thanks for taking time out of a day where you probably got a bunch of stuff that have been backed up, from cybersecurity to all the things you do in life, and you didn't have much sleep and you just got life going on. So thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed the time. I loved seeing everybody and giving their comments and support to you. And guys, please understand this video stays up. If you have any thoughts or questions or comments you want to share, leave a comment after the stream. Nick, with all that said, go ahead and take them away, my man.
Oh man, thanks for joining, guys. Thanks for listening to my rant. Please don't purchase pre-sale tickets for 2024 Firefest or Blue Ridge. You know, save yourselves the money. Stay at home. Support your local concert scene, I guess. Right? That's all we can do. But you know, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for letting me vent. Thanks for being the backboard that is you know, my Tuesday of feeling, my Tuesday therapy sessions here at 1 o'clock. So hopefully it was, if nothing else, amusing, maybe informational, and you know, it got to be a huge win if it was motivating in any way. So
yeah,
thanks for joining. We'll see you next week, 1 o'clock. I will have much more sleep under my belt, back in the studio, and look forward to seeing you guys there.